actually not in depth. I did a practical differences between the slim model of the PS3 or the fat boy of the PS3. Kind of the practical differences, what you as a user would expect. Because I have two of them sitting in front of me right now. But this is a little bit more of an in-depth difference between PS3s, okay? So the slim model, alright, is a hell of a lot lighter, okay? I mean, lugging this around in a backpack or something, really not a big deal. It's also a lot smaller, okay? You can see right now that it's a lot shorter, it's a lot skinnier. There's a reason why people refer to it as the slim model. The technical term is supermodel. Okay, that's the very first thing. The fat model, the fat boy, that's the technical term is original model. Okay, so right off the bat, the minimum specking is the very first thing people will know. This is kind of the more practical end, but this is in depth. Is the original PS3 featured a Toshiba, a larger hard drive, you know, and when I say larger, I don't mean in terms of storage, I mean in terms of physically being larger. Uh, that hard drive only holds 80 gigabytes, a lot of data. The PS3, the super model, or the slim, okay, in its base model form, in its lowest gigabyte form, also features a Toshiba typically. There are some that do feature a different one manufactured by Microsoft. I forget the name. But those will hold 160. Okay, so Sony originally had a problem with, and they always have this problem. I don't know how they still have this problem because, but they had a problem with getting enough manufacturers on board to pump out consoles to meet demand. So the original model actually was very expensive compared to, the super model. So the super model was clocking in at like right around $200. Okay, and when the original model came out for the PS3, those were clocking in at like $500. And in today's money, that's like for a PS3 being $200. That's like kind of average equivalent of what you would expect for a console price. An $800 price tag back then to now, that would be like charging $1,200 for a console. Something Microsoft is going to be doing here pretty soon, by the way. So, right off the bat, these were already a better deal, with the slim model and everything. Now, this guy right here, the big boy, okay, is a hell of a lot heavier. This is the model that I prefer, even though it holds literally half the storage. Jesus. And it's a lot heavier to lug around. I've actually, like jacked up my shoulder because I put it in a backpack and then lugged it on one shoulder. It's not a good thing to do. But when I was a kid, 2006, my mother actually for Christmas went to Costco and got me the original model. And so the Slims, or the super models, those typically came with God of War 3, or some of them came with Modern Warfare 3. There was a Destiny 1 console that was pretty cool. There was a Call of Duty Ghost console, which actually is super duper ultra rare. If you have a Call of Duty Ghost console and you happen to still have the box, go put that on eBay because those were not highly sought after, and because of that, nobody really bought them. And they didn't package Call of Duty Ghosts and the PS3 together until you actually bought them. GameStop only carried a certain amount of those. So actually, the Call of Duty Ghost PS3 is worth a nicer chunk of change. There was a a red model of PS3, by the way, for the God of War as well. So now the Fat Boy, only came with one option, okay, but the option was really fucking good, okay. So the original console PS3 came with Ratchet and Clank Tools of Destruction, which actually is a really good game if you guys can get a hold of it. And the Fat model came with Spider-Man 3, which at the time was like the big new movie uh, that was out. Let's see. Oh, hey, look at that. Somebody asked me if I make a fart video. Tell me channels suck. Say hi. What country am I from? The United States. I'm a libertarian. Somebody else says hello. Okay. I don't want to ignore you guys, even though I'm talking technical stuff. The other thing, so on these guys right here, they actually have a different connection part for your controller. So when you hook up your controller wirelessly, there is a different device that is connecting to your controller. On the super models, or again the slim, some people experience a connection issue that can be a thing. The other thing is the super slim model. It doesn't feature some miscellaneous features. The original PS console could actually play PS1 games. PS2 software was required to play the PS2, but you can no longer do that. Sony removed that. And I want to clarify that there is a difference between American Sony and Japanese-owned Sony. Japanese-owned Sony was actually all about the consumer. They were just a little weird. They didn't understand how to market their console, and so they did a poor job of marketing the original console and everything. Yeah, it had some interesting marketing. There was, well, for one, there was a whole thing where they marketed it as, like having tentacles or something, some kind of hentai reference, which didn't go well in the US. Then they had another marketing fiasco where they were having like human hands holding a video game case of like PS3 games. And then it turned out those human hands were real human body parts that they had like. I don't. Japanese Sony, they give a shit about the community. They gave a shit about the consumer, but they just didn't know how to market. And then American Sony took over, so the Japanese execs, they sold Sony to American corporations, and that Sony actually marketed the Super Slim, and right off the bat, they knew how to market it. And their commercial was the original model sitting next to the Super Slim, and the Super Slim eating the original console. That was actually kind of a cool commercial for what it was. And so, the only thing is they didn't really give a shit about the consumer. In fact, they still don't. They have a lot of anti-consumer policies and everything. They're better at marketing, but they also really don't give a fuck about you. So, I mean, the PS3, the original model, was kind of like the last of the Japanese Sony, because nowadays Sony is actually owned by a bunch of former EA employees, and let me tell you, it really shows when they're trying to charge, anywhere from $30 to $120 for a online membership. It really shows. Now, on the PS3, talking in terms of the online service here in 2025, people still do play online. You're not going to find people on like Call of Duty Ghost, for example. But if you want to play like Black Ops 1, there's people live on that. On, Minecraft, there's stuff like that. On, any of the, like Sony exclusive titles like Battlestar Royale, there's going to be people online. Some of the Ratchet and Clank games that never got remastered, there's going to be people live online. It doesn't really matter which of the two consoles you get, you will find people online on those games, playing those games. There is still a large community, and I think a large part of that is because you do not have to pay for an online membership. So there kind of still is a reason to buy a PS3 console in 2025. The other thing is, with all of that out of the way, these wonderful consoles and everything, they do play Blu-ray and all that stuff, but they also have kind of the cheapest options for getting PS1 games. If you wanted to get a physical copy of Dino Crisis, you would be looking at $260, okay? If you wanted to get one on the PS3 through the online service, you're looking at $10, okay? Ratchet and Clank Deadlock for the PS2 is actually now up to $15, which is not a lot, but over on PS3 it's, 10 bucks. So actually I think it's 5. So you're still saving money even on the stuff that doesn't cost a lot. The PS1, a physical copy of the director's cut, and I actually have a physical copy of Resident Evil 1. That'll set you back a nice, $75 for a PS1 game. Or if you have the original PS1, that'll set you back even more, even though it has less features. And you're looking at an unhealthy, $125 for a PS1 title. Whereas, again, only like $10 on the PS3. Resident Evil 3, you're looking at anywhere from $65 to $235, depending on what disc you can find, if you can even find one, because over the years, a lot of those have disappeared. A lot of people didn't buy them. A lot of them were destroyed. Resident Evil 3 for the PS1, like, that disc is extremely rare. For the PS3, again, $10, okay? Now, the only other thing to note here, and I want to show you guys this as much as I can. Oh, shit! So, on the back here, alright, I'm just going to go like this for a second. You'll notice that not only is it a 3-pronger to plug in and out, which is not convenient, there is an HDMI, you have your Ethernet, and then you have, your other port connection that nobody uses anymore. You can hook up AV cables if you really want to. But you also have a kill switch on the original model of PS3, alright? So now, I'm going to set this chunky boy down here. I'm going to pick up the slim model, which, you're not going to hear me grumble about picking this one up because it's a lot lighter. You'll notice that on this guy, there is no kill switch, okay? And there's a reason for that, actually. So, the super slim model is a little bit more sensitive to you, say, turning it off in rest mode, putting it at rest rather than full on turning it off. And we're talking about like full on power down. So the PS3 super slim, the super model, has a more efficient power supply. So as long as you fully power it down before you unplug it, no problems. If you unplug it when it's at like a rest mode, then there is kind of an issue. You have to rebuild the system. It's super annoying. It takes forever. Okay, the super slim has a more efficient power supply, but you're gonna have to rebuild the database more often with the super slim. Whereas the original model has the kill switch. It's not as sensitive as the the super model to being powered off improperly or being unplugged. It doesn't require you to rebuild the system software as often. So, there is that aspect of it, and that has to do, even though the power supply is less efficient, uh, something about the database architecture of the uh, smaller hard drive is more efficient. So, and then here's the other thing is the supermodel, when you load things, when you download things and everything, it actually takes longer than the original model. The original model is actually faster when it comes to downloading things and rebuilding architecture or moving any kind of data. So, from a technical perspective, even though the PS3 supermodel, the slim model, has more storage and has a more efficient power supply. The original model is more efficient just when it comes to data. It just handles data better for whatever reason. The other thing to note is the Super Slim features, of course, the matte finish. You can't really see that well in my video, unfortunately. Maybe you can. Uh, the matte finish and everything does not show scratches as well. Okay, and people like that matte finish because it doesn't show scratches as much. I really like the shiny finish on these PS3s. And the smallest little, like, if you put tape on it, you'll notice, okay? If you scratch it, it's like plain as day. You can see it really well, right? Okay. They also had these little chrome buffers, if you can even call them that. They're more kind of a silver, but they call it a chrome. And they have those little buffers and everything. Okay, and I also wanted to show you this. This part comes off, okay, and it's, here's the thing people don't realize about this plastic is it's actually see-through, okay? The whole entire shell on the original PS3 is, in fact, see-through. It's just that there's so much crap in the PS3 you can't see into the console. But you can remove that part, and you can immediately take a couple of screws, remove this piece right here, and that gives you immediate access to your hard drive. You can't do that on the Super Slim model. On the Super Slim model, you have to disassemble the entire console. Okay? And that actually has a lot of technical, very, very technical application. People, when they want to hack and mod and modify or soup up a PS3, they prefer the fat model just because you can access the hard drive a lot faster. And that swappability, because you can literally pull the hard drive out from that part, actually makes a difference. And then the size of the shell and everything and how everything is built into the case actually allows for you to put more. For example, the Super Slim model, people are putting 1 gigabyte storages in that and souping up their consoles and doing all kinds of things. On the PS3, I've seen people put up to 12 gigabytes in one Fat Boy PS3. It's honestly incredible. In terms of software, in terms of pirating or emulating stuff, it's exactly the same across the board. The PS3s at one point were able to run Linux back when it was Japanese owned with the original models. Sony has, American Sony has tried to crack down on the Linux thing, but you can still do it if you have a computer, you know how to do that. There is the PS3 Linux software. Okay, because of that, that allowed people to break the console eventually, even though the PS3 actually is one of the hardest consoles to break for its time. The PS2 was pretty easily broken. The PS1 was super easy to break, and actually, the PS1, even to this day, is still like the console to use if you want to, pirate and rip CDs or DVDs. I don't really get into the pirating stuff or the emulation on, console form. That's more of a thing that you want to do on PC if you're going to be that type of a person. I'm not big into cheating either. So, if you're somebody that uses hacks, mods, and video games, I think you're a piece of shit. I don't like you. If you do it in single player, I can understand. Okay, I can understand if you do it in single player, you're not ruining anybody's game. You know, you enter a little cheat code here and there. Like, I do it too. Sometimes you want to play, you know, Grand Theft Auto big head mode. That's understandable. If you cheat online, you're an asshole. Okay, if it's 2020, it's 2025 now. This console came out 19 years ago. Okay, so this console came out 19 years ago, and if you still need to cheat in Call of Duty or whatever, uh, you know, I really don't like you. Basically, is what I'm getting at, right? So here's the thing. On topic of cheating, as I mentioned, that Linux software with the PS3s is available on both consoles. So yeah, people will run a Linux software and then they will be able to get into the PS3 database and play PS3 games online using Linux, even though they're not supposed to be able to. And they will be able to have their PS3 hooked up to a laptop or a computer or something and cheat. Like, you know, they literally have hacks, they have mods, you know, some of those guys, you know, be careful who you talk shit to because some of those guys actually have their hacks and everything from the dark web, and they can turn your light switches on and off. It's funny, but it's also kind of scary. Um, Now there is a difference between guys who get their mods and cheats from the video games they play themselves. In the case like Black Ops 1 or Black Ops 2, they get them from theater mode. If you're playing something like you know, All Stars Battle Royale or something, or like Ratchet and Clank, and you know somebody has cheats, they very much might have those from the dark web. Okay, that you know, so there is that aspect to it. You know your crowd when you're playing your games and everything, and that is a problem prevalent on both consoles. Both consoles are used to do that. Uh, you know, I'm not going to get into the exact how they do that and whatnot because I don't want you guys doing it. Because I don't trust people online, you know, and you shouldn't either. Uh, Now, the other thing to talk about is lens light. So this is part of the reason why the PS3 can run PS1 games and the the supermodel can't. So the Slim has a different lens light than the original model. I gotta say, quit saying PS3 because they're both PS3s. Uh, so the original model has a lens light that was a little bit harder to manufacture, is a little bit trickier to get a hold of. It is still to this day harder to get a hold of than the other lens light. If you take a slim model lens light and put it in the Fat Boy will use it. You can use that. You just will lose the ability to play PS1 games. Uh, in the slim model, the lens light, and that was a cheaper one. Uh, it still does what it's supposed to do, which is run PS3 games. Now, you're probably wondering about replacing that lens. You probably won't ever have to, unless you violently shake your console around all the time or something. Those lens lights were made to last a very long time. On my original PS3 Fat Boy, has the same lens light that it was manufactured with. On the Slim model, I don't know. On the Slim model, their lens light burns out more often, but it's still possible that it's original. With that being said, the difference in terms of price, so the lens light in the Slim model, the Super Slim, or the Super model, uh, that lens, you can get like a bag, like 25 to 100 of them for like $15 off of like Amazon. On the original, to get their specific lens light, you would have to pay $25. You'd have to find somebody online who, for one, makes it or has a stockpile of it, and it's $25 per one. So that is a lot more expensive, but I mean, at the same time, it's like $25, and that lens light was literally made to last. I mean, the lens light in my console lasted 19 whole ass years. So, grain of sand, grain of salt, you know. take it how you want it, you know, even rectally. Uh, that being said, you know, the lens light thing is not a super big issue. It's probably not a thing you're going to run into. The last really technical thing to really talk about, okay, because these consoles are so damn similar. Oh, so right here, there's going to be a rubber piece. Let's see. Can't get any of these off. So the rubber pieces on these guys, these big boys, are a little bit harder to deal with. You're going to have to actually take a knife or a screwdriver to peel them off. They don't pop right off. There's a screw point down behind the sticker, so they put that there so that they would know that you voided the warranty by opening your console. There's 4 screw points there, and oh my god, and you know, so it's a little bit annoying. Those screws are like this long too, so there is that thing with those. And heaven help you if one of those screws breaks, because those are actually like a proprietary screw that you would have to get through the metric bin at Home Depot, and assuming they even have it. And I worked at Home Depot. Let me tell you, getting those metric screws that are yay long and that specific integer is actually a pain in the ass. They also require the triangle bit, but you can replace it with a Phillips or something. You can also brute force the triangle bit with a Phillips. You know, Sony tried to stop you, but you can actually brute force this with a flathead too. You know, and I'll probably actually pick up a triangle bit later, just because I know I have those in there. Actually, I have a DeWalt set, so I might have the triangle bit already. These guys, to remove the little thing, these guys, they do have glue, but they also have a little bit, I don't know if you can see that. So on the corners, they have these little tiny tabs. You can't really see it. They have these little tiny tabs, and those little tiny tabs allow it to pop in and out. So even when you have a glue, the glue is gone, it's not a big deal. Like, oh, you can see it real well on this one. Yeah. So that little tab there, these rubber pieces on these guys pop right out. There's 4 of them. Or, excuse me, there's 3 of them. My bad. There's 3 of them, and then there's 1 screw point behind the sticker. The other thing to show you about that is the sticker on the supermodel is yay big. That is the sticker right there. And that sticker is a lot smaller, okay? And that is handy because it's very easy to take a razor blade, remove that sticker, and then put that sticker back on and make it look like you never opened up your console, okay? So there is that. Now, it is 2025. There's no possible way in hell you have a PS3 that does not have a voided warranty. That's just impossible. Okay, now, we're talking about manufacturer warranty. If you guys want to get a new PS3 in 2025, with a warranty and everything, there is a website. It's called backmarket.com. I'm sure you've heard a fucking 100 advertisements. I don't know why they're doing that. It's kind of annoying. But they are actually good. It's where I got my laptop that lasted a while. All their stuff comes with a 2-year warranty. And actually, just all my hardware and devices. So, my laptop was a Dell 7490 with 32 RAM, i7 5th gen, and that was one of the models that had more storage than the typical model. Back Market doesn't just do laptops, computers, but they actually sell PS3s. So if you want one of those, they come with a 2-year warranty. You have 2 years to get something fixed for free if there is an issue. My little brother actually needs to go get his console fixed because he has that 2-year warranty. Uh, the only thing is you're not going to find the Fat Boy original models on websites like that because they're more rare, they're harder to work on, they have more anti whatever in them. Like, again, metric screws this long that are a pain in the ass to get a hold of. So refurbishers really hate working on the Fat Boy. Modders who want to, soup up their console like it's, a fucking muscle car, they love the Fat Boy, but refurbishers absolutely hate you if you pull out a Fat Boy, okay? If you want to see a refurbisher charge you $100 asshole uh, service fee, get a Fat Boy. If you don't want to pay extra $100 to have somebody work on, fix, or clean your console, get a super slim. The super models, they're a little bit easier to work on because they were designed with the idea that at some point they were going to have to be worked on. The original models were not designed that way, and I don't want to open up either console, but I can really easily describe it. So when you open up the super slim, hard drive, power supply, and then motherboard and all the other parts, including the fan and thermal paste. All right, so you pull one and the other, and you have access to everything. You don't even have to pull everything out. On the Fat Boy model, it's, there's this proprietary part bullshit, there's this other nonsense, there's this other crap. Then there's the hard drive underneath all of it, so you have to pull out all those extra things. All those extra things actually have to do with the power supply. Once you pull out the hard drive, then you have access to the power supply, and then you have access to the motherboard, and wouldn't you know it, underneath the motherboard is your thermal paste and your fan and all that, and it's on the bottom. It's really fucking annoying to get to, so even changing out the thermal paste in the original model is a pain in the ass, okay? Now, because of that, again, like, refurbishers and guys who work and clean consoles, they really hate you if they have a if you have a Fat Boy, because the Fat Boy was not designed in mind with people taking it apart and cleaning it or fixing it or whatnot. But the Fat Boy also breaks down less often than any other console, so kind of a catch-22. You could find somebody like me who's very nostalgic about the Fat Boy, and they're probably not going to charge you an asshole service fee of an extra $100. So the other thing to talk about is the Super Slim is so compact with parts and so efficient that cleaning it out with a can of air is actually a pain in the ass. It kind of requires you to remove the cover and everything, even though that's easier to do, and so it's not a super big deal. But the Fat Boy, there's so many access points in that sucker where you can get a nice straw in there and just give it a blast of compressed air to clean everything out. It's really easy to do. I mean, if you want to put it this way, I could take a Starbucks straw to the Fat Boy and blow air in it with my mouth and probably clean it out. I couldn't do that with the Super model. The other thing to talk about the Super model and the Slim, and this is, just more cosmetic. So the Super Slim, as I talked about, had the red, the red God of War case. That was pretty cool. They had the Call of Duty Ghost package. They had a Destiny console. The Destiny console, there was two different versions. One was just the black model, but the other one was actually kind of a Destiny background blue color. Or no, there was 3 models actually. There's 3 of them. But the Destiny Blue model, instead of saying PS3 on the top, actually said, like, right where it would say PS3. Instead, it said Destiny. Okay, that was pretty cool. There was the white Destiny PS3 model that had Destiny in gold letters, and it would say PS3. On the fat model, of course, it actually says PlayStation 3, in that silver finish. There was one other color, and that was a lime green, and that lime green was only available in Malaysia and Spain. Speaking of Spain, for the fat model, there is a wonderful color scheme. They call it Spanish blue, which I really want to get because it's fucking gorgeous, okay? And so the fat model had a shiny Spanish blue. They had, of course, this model, they had a shiny white. Everything shiny on those. And the white PS Fat Boy, by the way, is probably the worst one to buy if you don't want to see scratches or scuff marks, because those really show. Now, the Spanish blue model, that's just fucking gorgeous. But that was not the only exclusive color for the Fat Boy. Over in Malaysia, they had that lime green again. I don't know why Spain has the lime green for the supermodel, but not for the fat, but Malaysia had it for both. There was also a silver model, but that was only available in Japan. If you happen to come across a silver model, hang on to that. Hang on. You're never going to get it again, okay? Those Japanese silver models are extremely rare. Those are our once-in-a-lifetime console over here, okay? Those are a once-in-a-lifetime console over there as well. So, other colors, there was a Snoop Dogg, golden PS3, and that was a chrome, like a car buffer chrome finish, around the edges with gold. Yeah, so Snoop Dogg has literally a gold-plated PS3. He also has a gold-plated PS4. Kind of a common theme there, I guess. And then there was one other color, okay, for those guys. And that was a very weird kind of like purple. It was a very light purple, almost like a magenta, a shiny magenta, and that was for Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe was not too keen on letting anybody video game. Russia actually tried to ban the PS3, so those magenta consoles are also incredibly rare. They're not worth anything, though, because they're region locked to Eastern Europe, and so if you try to use one here in the US, it will not work. Speaking of region locking, the supermodels don't have any kind of region lock whatsoever. The Fat Boys do have region locks based on where they are manufactured and everything. The Eastern Europe one, that one doesn't work no matter what you try to do to it. But all the other region locked ones you can get around. So, like, if you have a Japanese console, even though it's region locked, you could, use it. And on the Fat Boy model, actually, the Japanese consoles are the only ones that did not have the region lock, allowing you to play Japanese games. So, as far as getting around the region lock, that's a software thing. One, you could set your console to that region in which you want to play games. So, a lot of people set their consoles to Japan. So that they can play everything, and then other ones, again, Linux, because the PS3 ran Linux. Lastly, a fun fact about the PS3 is that the original Fat model was actually used because of the Linux thing and the system link. People were building supercomputers out of them. NASA has one, and in the case of the U.S. Army built a supercomputer out of PS3s, but they forgot to turn off auto update, and so auto update came through, ruined Linux, ruined the entire supercomputer, resulting in the U.S. Army literally giving away hundreds of thousands of PS3 consoles to their troops. So if you're a trooper that one day just randomly got a PS3 from like your drill or your CO, that's why. Although most of those guys probably died in like the Middle East, unfortunately. So there was that. And in the case of Super Slim, you know, the Super Slim never was used to build a computer. The Super Slim came out after they were trying to get rid of Linux. So, in theory, if you guys know how to do Linux and you understand the system link, you could get any PS3 you want, Super Slim, Fat, doesn't matter, and combine them all to build your own supercomputer. However, I'd point out that supercomputer, while NASA still uses it, is horribly inefficient because the original fat models take 3 times the wattage of a refrigerator. Okay, the Slim is a little bit more power efficient. Now, in terms of heat and dissipation, again, I mentioned that the Slim has a problem dissipating heat and likes its thermal paste to be changed regularly. The fat model does not have the problem dissipating heat, but if you turn it on, it'll heat up your entire room. Okay, if you're in a 60-degree temperature room and you run a original model for about 30 minutes, your room's going to be 90 degrees. It is not a fun time running that guy. So it does help you limit playtime, though. There is that.